The African Union, the Economic Community of West African States, and the Commonwealth Election Observation Mission in Nigeria raised concerns over electoral violence and the refusal of the Independent National Electoral Commission to post results on their portal, amongst other challenges recorded during the presidential and National Assembly elections. The Election Observation Mission made this known during a media briefing in Abuja. Arise correspondent Punarimam Benjamin has more.
Here at the ECOWAS Commission in Abuja, the Electoral Observation Mission from the African Union, the ECOWAS and the Commonwealth. The AU observers highlighted challenges recorded during the elections, especially violence, which led to the killings of some persons across the state.
The election took place amidst general insecurity in the northwest, the northeast, the southeast, and south-south geopolitical zones. The mission noted that the security issues presented a challenge to the conduct of the elections, as noted with the attack on INEC offices, personnel, and materials before the election.
However, the ECOWAS mission emphasizes the need for Nigeria's electoral umpire to consider a more user-friendly way to help voters identify their polling units, ensure training of electoral officials on the use of the technology to help speed up the process.
The visible presence of security agents discharging their duties in accordance with the provisions of the law in some polling units. However, they were inadequate. The professional conduct of polling officials, as well as some ad hoc staff who demonstrated inadequate knowledge of their duties, especially with the voting materials.
For the Commonwealth, the Naira redesign has also contributed to the delay of the process. The observers suggested that the Naira redesign should have been done earlier than now.
While the bimodal voter accreditation system, BVAS, functions satisfactorily in most polling units, our observers reported that the BVAS was faster on facial recognition than on detecting fingerprints of the voters during the accreditation process.
With these observations and recommendations made by the independent observation missions, Nigerians will be expecting that the outcome of the results will reflect the will of the people. Punarimam Benjamin, Arise News.
Joining us now is Olamide Afolabi of TAP Technologies. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, well, we've seen the reports there, the two reports with regards to just an assessment of the elections, particularly looking at the play or the role that technology played in this particular cycle, which, as we have said a number of times on the show this morning and in the past few days, was meant to be the game changer. But there were a number of challenges and issues around the use of BVAS. The INEC, Mr. Festus Okoye of INEC had mentioned that there were technical glitches that were experienced during the elections, hence them being unable to upload results electronically. Yeah. What's your take on this? I mean, you have spoken quite extensively on the use of technology even during elections, so I'm sure you have your thoughts and views on the election thus far.
Yeah, so for me, I think that we are living in a world where globally we are talking about technologies like GPT, we are talking about driverless cars. This is 2023. We should not be talking about this. Technology is so far advanced where without even doing much, you can have a very beautiful interface. You can have a very nice backend that is scalable without doing much. We are in a world where we are even talking about no-code technology. And here we are in Nigeria talking about failed BVAS. The BVAS technology is a technology that is dated decades years ago, where, I mean, to just get something from the back end and have a thumbprint done should not be a problem at all. So for me, I think that it calls for a lot of, we need to be able to hold INEC accountable for this, to see what really is the reason. There needs to be like a forensic audit. Why should we be having this kind of complaint concerning a technology that you spend a lot of money and you had years to plan? In tech, when you build something, you need to test it over and over again. And this is a scenario where you had an idea of the number of people that will be using this technology beforehand. And it's different when you are launching something into the world and you thought that, oh, maybe I'll have 5,000 customers. But here, you know the number of people that have registered to vote. So you have the perfect data that you can simulate with to know that this thing is not going to fail. You have the time to do your pressure test. And I mean, if we now come here to this time during the due day and we are now having failed technology, then either their vendor or INEC themselves needs to be questioned.
In God we trust, we're told, but everyone else must bring data.
Yes.
The big problem in Nigeria today is about data.
Yeah.
INEC is saying, bring your data. The political parties, at least 4 of them, are saying, we don't trust the data that you have put out there. INEC says, there's no sabotage, there's no intrusion. National Communications Commission said, on election day, there was no network failure. Voters say, at the polling units, beavers did not work. The IREV worked for a few hours. We were told on Sunday, engineers, your colleagues will correct, this back end that you talked about. Today is Tuesday. So what exactly are we dealing with? Is it incompetence? Is it inefficiency? Or is it sabotage? Can we rule out sabotage?
Yeah, for me, it is hard to tell from an external perspective. And I think at the end of the day, INEC will be the ones to give us the perfect answer to this. Whether it is inefficiency, whether the vendor that they decided to work with, has been compromised or something, we don't know. So, and for us, we really don't know the answer. They are the ones that dealt with them. They are the ones that, have whatever SLA that they have with them. But for me, I think that it is very, very wrong in 2023 to be having this kind of feedback from a technology standpoint, and after spending so much money to acquire this technology that is expected to make the process more efficient and smooth. The whole idea of introducing this technology is to give confidence to the people, to know that, oh, we can trust this process. And if people are now questioning that to the point that international community are also questioning it, I think somebody in INEC, either their CTO or whoever is responsible for this technology, need to come and address the people and provide proofs that those informations are false or not.
All right, let's go straight to it. So let's talk about server, From your outlook as a software engineer and all of that, once you try to put something on a server that is supposed to be live based on application, and it doesn't allow you go live, it obviously means that the server is not put on live.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Possibly.
Yes.
It obviously means that. Also, when you now start to use an offline option to a server that is supposed to be switched on live, it also means that the server is not live, and that's why you are using a holding bay, which is an offline option. Correct me if I'm wrong and speak through this.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so if you look at the way Facebook, I mean, we use Facebook, we use Instagram. And if you look at the quality of pictures, for example, that we upload on Instagram, some of them are even high resolution pictures, and you can see the speed that they use to get uploaded. So for me, if you try to upload something on Instagram and you have data on your phone, but it's not working, then we expect to get a feedback from Instagram or Facebook, which is a parent company, or Meta, I mean, as they call themselves now, that they have a server downtime. So it is clear when something is expected to go into a server and it's not doing that, there's either a server downtime, probably the server that is hosting that technology is down, or something is off.
Oh, the server is off?
Well, yeah, probably. The server is probably off. Otherwise, it is expected to behave as intended. So for me, if you try to upload something on a server and it's not working, then the server is down. And we cannot be talking about a downtime server in this election process. For me, it's absurd.
Well, I mean, we are not engineers. How complex, how difficult is it to fix just what you have described? Because when Festus Okoye spoke and issued a statement on Sunday, he said our engineers are on it and we will quickly fix it. After the chairman of INEC had promised that there will be electronic transmission, Okoye himself is on record as having boasted everywhere that no, this is about electronic transmission real time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we imagine that they try to prepare for it. So how long does it take for engineers to fix something, you know, in this regard? Will it take forever?
No, it shouldn't
Or
take
is
forever.
it a deliberate attempt to just abandon that server, that portal, and do manual transmission and just tell us what they think we should hear? Because issues have been raised about credibility and transparency.
Only INEC can speak to whether it's a deliberate attempt or not.
No,
but
no,
I think
you are a Nigerian. No, you are not on this program as just as an engineer.
Yeah.
You are also a citizen.
Yes.
What do you think is the issue as a citizen? Did you vote, by the way?
Yes.
Anyway, that's your choice.
So it's really hard to tell the structure that they put in place to make this work. And if you put a lot of not so sound people to design a system like this, it might take them a while to fix a bug or to fix a problem. But when you have very competent hands, I don't think it is something as sensitive as an election of a country of 200 million people with 93 million registered voters. The kind of things you need to put in place to ensure that you have a fail-safe system whenever a system or a part of your system fails should not be something that is a brainer. I mean, it's supposed to be a no-brainer, right? If you have competent people. Now, to now even fail, and it's now taking you so long to fix that failure, it speaks a lot about, you know, the whole architecture behind the scene. So, I think that that is what should be reviewed, the whole architecture behind it, to see that something is obviously wrong. You can't have a system set up to, you know, to do an election like Nigeria's election. We're not talking about a country of 8 million people or 6 million people. And you know ahead of time, you know what you are dealing with. You know that this has the, in fact, we should be preparing for a scale of billions when we are talking about Nigerian election, even though we have 200 million people. So for me, I think there is something around that place that they need
I
to
have to ask you that question, because if the electrical engineers, systems engineers, and all these people cannot do it, I'm ready to recommend Ogaridionik, Ogariwaya to INEC. You know, we mobilize Ogaridionik, Ogariwaya. If they may solve the problem.
We have
because, as you said, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right, I'm glad you assured us that we have competent people, so we wouldn't need to resort to getting the Oga Radionic on board. But the reason why these questions and this conversation is very important, Olamide, is that we have a gubernatorial election in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Beyond just the legitimacy or the confidence in this particular election cycle, is so that we can learn from this experience, as we thought that INEC had been able to draw lessons from off-cycle elections, like the Osun election, for instance. So we thought we were fully prepared.
Exactly.
Therefore, we need to break down and get to the bottom of this so that in the future, we wouldn't have downtime and times like this. My first question is this. I'm sure you're familiar with the BVAS configuration.
Yes.
So tell us what some of the challenges or technical glitches could look like. What could potentially affect the BVAS from operating? I'm not saying this is what INEC is saying. I'm just saying just to look at it and examine it. That's one. The second part of it is that, is there any way that the back end or server can be can be tapped into, because there's a picture that the deputy, the vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party has put up with the the Minister of Works and Housing, having information to this back into the results and asking that how does this is from his posts now, saying that he had results or he was able to access the back end. Is this possible, and in what case would this be possible? Then the third question I have for you is that, is it possible that with the configuration of the beavers, that you can upload a particular result, but another result would not be uploaded? I'm asking this because in many units, they said that the only issue was the presidential election results. But in posting up or sending off the, because we had for Senate, House of Reps, it was easier. But once there was it that people were voting more, they had more numbers, there was a bug can affect just that aspect of the beavers. So you can break it down to us, number one, for information and knowledge, and number two, to learn lessons from this particular cycle.
Oh, okay, I think that before this election, there were state-level kind of election. We had the Ekiti gubernatorial election, we had the Osun gubernatorial election, which were supposed to serve as a very good pilot to test this technology. Even though the number of people that voted cannot be compared to the total number of people that voted here. And whatever glitches that they may face, they might have faced rather while doing those small elections, should have been the feedback for improvement. We should not be piloting with a national election, a technology that we have. A major election, exactly. So, like I said, somebody needs to be accountable for this. If we have all this time to plan, and God so good, because of the tribunal process, people will have different times that we have done elections. So one was done last year, we've tried the technology, another one was done a few months ago, we've tried the technology and all that. So coming back here and then seeing that, oh, we are now having issues again, it calls for a lot of forensic and, internal analysis. So to answer your question about what are the failure points, this is a technology that relies online, that needs to work online, where people will validate, and then I'm not sure whether they uploaded the entire fingerprint on that small device for people to be validated. And I don't know the kind of internet that they provided for this. So these are failure points. When you have a technology that relies on internet and your internet vendor fails you.
NCC said there was no problem. So
if NCC is saying that there was no network failure at all polling units, then the problem is with the device itself. So the way we built our own technology, because we couldn't rely on internet, was that, if I was to build beavers, is everybody in a polling unit, you have their data, for example. If you want, and you know the device that is going to each polling unit, if you cannot trust data points, like you cannot trust data access in terms of connecting to a server, and if you have that information either sitting on everybody's PVC or sitting on the device, we can validate against that to ensure that everything is right. And whenever there is good network, you sync that to a server immediately, so that people at the back end, people at the control center can know what's going on in real time or near real time at every polling unit. Because some polling units are, in far north, in places where to put a mask there is very difficult. So those are some of the failure points that can happen, where transmission of data, using the technology. Some people, they say, have very terrible fingerprints from farming a long time ago and all that. And I'm sure that we are all aware of all these complexities, and we had time to prepare for it. So it is not an excuse that we are bringing a technology that makes the election process so inefficient. And to talk to your point where they said it is only a certain aspect of the election that they started having glitches, calls for review. Because when you want to upload senatorial or whatever, it's working fine, and all of a sudden when you needed to do something else, something went wrong, then somebody just needs to be questioned about that what is really going on here. So
nothing could have gone wrong in the back-end server to have maybe prevented a particular result from being transmitted?
Well, when you are building the technology, you have a lot of people that are responsible. Some people are responsible for, the interaction with the beavers itself. Some are responsible for the back end. So it's hard to tell who broke the protocol or who turned off something from the back end. So a lot of things could have been wrong, really.
Because also happy on what Ayo said. So could it possibly be a case that, was there a separate server for the presidential upload?
Possibly.
And there was another separate server for this, and probably the presidential upload server was not crashed or was not switched on. Could that also be a possibility? Because we really need to get to the root of the matter here. Because, and it's not a joking matter.
Yeah.
We spent about $1 billion on this elections.
Yeah. Yeah.
This technological process alone,
yeah,
of this interface that you and I and millions of Nigerians out there in tech know that was a very simple mechanism process,
yeah,
cost us about $156 million. 117 billion naira. 117 billion naira to the extent that they couldn't even fix ordinary UI UX design. Interface was even problematic.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can speak through all of that we've talked about. So is there a possibility that they had a separate server for presidential election, separate server for House of Rep election? Because it's inexplicable that House of Rep is going in one breath, presidential became problematic and something, and the telecom commissioner said there was no downtime on the system. Yeah. So what was preventing it from going live?
Yeah, so honestly for me, I think that there should have been a process where we have a critical point of looking at the architecture behind this thing. If you are building a technology like this and you decide to use some architectures that are not world standard, that are not good, then some very smart technical people would have come and say, no, this is hard. This is not a good one. So stakeholders should have been assembled to criticize the architecture. So just like you said, it's possible that they had a different server for each of the elections. Maybe a server for Senate, a server for House of Rep, a server for presidential, for example.
So that would have been because the picture size I'm just seeing here was 1 KB. That was the allowed picture size to even post for the presidential election. 1 kilobyte.
I expect that to be blurry.
Yes, that's from the findings going on now. It was 1 KB for the presidential elections. You can continue your comment, please.
So I mean, what I think should happen now is that whoever is responsible for the tech should come out and show us the architecture and be accountable for this glitch and let us know why before the gubernatorial election. We need to be able to see in transparency what the architecture was. Why did the beavers fail in some location? And if they are claiming that it didn't fail, then they need to reassure us why they feel that it didn't fail. Because now it's looking to me that somebody is saying that, oh, I'm expected to upload a picture on Instagram and it didn't work, and Instagram is yet telling me that it's your fault. It should work. So somebody needs to come and explain the architecture behind this for us and let us understand why the allowable picture for the presidential one is 1 kilobyte.
1 kilobyte.
For something that someone is obviously going to take with their phone. And I think an average smartphone now, it saves a picture in like 10 megabytes, for example. And if you need to convert that, we know how blurry it's going to, turn that picture to before it gets uploaded. Even WhatsApp have a compression algorithm on their stuff, but some of the pictures that we share on WhatsApp are still really nice and they are still very visible. So I think that we need to call for accountability in this technology and see, and people need to tell us what really went wrong.
I guess that the international community, those who work in the tech space, must be laughing at us.
Yes.
Because from the way you have sounded, some of these things are so elementary.
Yeah.
There's something they call auto-scaling in web technology. So when I hear server, I mean, you can use as many servers as possible. Are we being told that INEC is just using one server for one purpose in this election? That's the question. And then secondly, what do you think is the solution? Yeah. With this logjam in which we have found ourselves with regard to collation of results, what do you think is the possible immediate solution that we can adopt?
So for us, I mean, we need to have a stakeholders review session first of this election.
But we want result of the election, and we want you know, a result that Nigerians will consider acceptable and believable.
Yeah. And the reason why it's very paramount is that we have a gubernatorial election coming in less than 2 weeks. And I don't think anybody wants to have a country where people have started questioning, you know, the hard work or the work of INEC or whatever it is. And technology is expected to provide efficiency and confidence. And if that technology is unable to do that, we may as well go back to the old way of doing things instead of adopting technology that is now making it even worse. So, I think that the way forward for us regarding this election is that we have very smart people that are very passionate about this election. And people need to come together and ensure that the process of providing technology is credible, number one, because for me, I kind of believe that the process is not so. If we are having this kind of issue after we've been able to pilot it, probably like you said, probably we are using one server. So we need to kind of have a forensic audit on the entire thing, that infrastructure that was provided to back this up. Then we need to review the architecture to ensure that, you know, it is world standard. Just like you said, auto-scaling is an essential part of a cloud service provider. So if you are using Microsoft Azure or you are using AWS, for example, they provide you, if you click an option for auto-scale, if you have 100,000 customers, it has a bandwidth that is going to allocate to you. If you move from 100,000 to a million customers, automatically it scales and is able to accept that, because they've built it in such a way that you don't need to start worrying about things like this. And we have very smart technology providers like that in Nigeria as well, that are vendors that some of us use, because of obviously you can't host Nigerian financial data outside, that we currently use today, that provide us with those kind of services. And it's going to be very interesting not to be told that we don't have that type of technology backing up our election process.
Well, let's see how all of this plays out. Well, we'd like to thank you very much, Olamide Afolabi,
thank you for
joining us on the program.